Greetings, Academy Misfits. Welcome to an even less formal salon than usual. Tonight we're talking about Star Trek Prodigy. We were going to wait until next week and do episode deep dives, but after binging it, I wanted to talk about it. So, whoever has me on in the background, thank you. But welcome. Also, happy 4th of July if anybody is still doing that. And also, very importantly, a happy 100th birthday to the Caesar salad. And thank you to that inventor. Thank you to Tijuana, Mexico for bringing us that eternal joy.
And whoever combines the idea of the side salad with the Caesar salad, you're a genius.
Yes.
The joy of brunch is everywhere. Yeah.
Girl.
All that we need.
Well, that's right. Some people eat at brunch. I forgot about that.
There are those.
Little snacks once in a while, along with the mimosas and screwdrivers.
Only because the law requires it. Only because the law requires.
Yes.
You know something? Here's an actual fun fact. I have never experienced a bottomless mimosa.
Well, right, because you're the one drinking it.
Because every brunch I go to can't be bottomless. Anyway.
That's right. They are delightful. Yeah, obviously it depends on the price. If you can't, most places I've gone to, the most expensive mimosa I've ever had was I think $8. Anything beyond that, I think is criminal. And I know I'm older, so I'm sure inflation has hit. But yeah, no, bottomless usually ends up being worth it as a per beverage count for sure. Speaking of bottomless, that didn't work, but it does remind me that Trevor had a very good and important note prior to us going live. We are talking about what is generally speaking for everyone, but geared towards children and families. So just a quick note up top that yes, a disclaimer up top. We are irreverent adults. We are drinking. We're just huge Star Trek fans. So if you have come here for a continuation of the family-friendly fun that is Star Trek Prodigy, this ain't the place. We're going to be talking about the family fun that is Star Trek Prodigy, but this ain't the place for that family fun continuation thought. No.
A fun time to just describe the salon in general. So typically when you watch a YouTube show or listen to a podcast, the general rule of thumb is you're listening to a show that was created by people who are trying to make a show that they too would want to listen to. That isn't what the salon is. The salon is literally friends hanging out, drinking, talking about Star Trek, and you just get to watch. So the shenanigans that ensue are not filtered. There are gags and bits that are associated with us being inappropriate. This is a cluster of inappropriateness. So if somehow you missed the part where you're supposed to be 18 to watch this, go have a parent or guardian watch this show first and then tell you if you're allowed to watch it. And they'll probably say no if they're remotely responsible. Yeah. Otherwise, welcome.
Yes. Star Trek Prodigy Season 2. Yeah, Matt had a thought.
I just realized a good way to sum it up. This is less informational and much more voyeuristic.
Yes. Very that. Yes. We talk about what we love. We talk about what we didn't like. We don't shy away from criticism, though we try not to be dicks about it like some other people online. But I don't think there will be that much of it. Tonight we're talking about the brand new season of Star Trek Prodigy. Season 2, now all 20 episodes are streaming on Netflix because Paramount Plus is dumb. Paramount in general is dumb. They canceled a nearly complete second season and then removed it completely from their platform. And now Netflix gets it. To their benefit, I rejoined Netflix for this show because if Star Trek is on something, I'm going to get it. And I'm glad I did because this season has been delightful. So tonight, a little less formal than we usually do, which is never all that formal anyway. But I don't have even a rough agenda. Starting next week, we'll be doing episode deep dives. The season has helpfully packed itself into 2-episode bits for the most part. There are 5 two-parters. Each will fall on a week that we're talking about those 2 episodes. And in between those episodes really complement each other. So get excited for that. But tonight, willy-nilly, we'll just start. Unless, Trevor, I didn't even ask you, did you have an intention set or thought that you wanted to?
It's not lit.
It's not lit.
There
but
no
the
intentions.
show's about to be, oh, God, I hate that.
It was okay. It was worth a try. I saw where you were going. No, we're just fucking doing this. And there it is. There's the clear indication that this is not for children. So let's have it.
All right, let's talk about Star Trek Prodigy season 2. Top thoughts. I'm not even going to do the video. You know what? No. Let's mix it up. Yeah. Let's talk about our top thoughts. Normally, I would begin our top thoughts, but I have been speaking plenty already, so I'll take a break. And let's start with Joanne. What are your initial top thoughts on season 2 of Star Trek Prodigy?
So I'm fresh off the watch. I just finished the final 5 episodes today, and I thought the ending, they stuck the landing just beautifully. I was so emotional. But overall, I thought it was a good season. Kind of similar from my experience of season 1. I thought it started slowly for me, part of me. But as it, because, and I maintain this, Prodigy is one of the most well-crafted, well-written treks ever. And because it was just so well-crafted, it pulls you into the story, right? So that then you're like, okay, what's happening and what's going to happen? And I don't know what's going to happen. And I love that. I find that a very compelling way to watch television. So I really liked it. I liked the arc. Timey-wimey is not my bag, right? So, that takes me out a little bit because it makes me feel it's just too much. It gives me a headache, but that's just personal preference, right? No hits against the show. It's just Joanne cannot do time travel well. And even less so since I stopped drinking. So, but overall, I thought it was good. I thought it was good.
So how about you, Matt? Speaking of timey-wimey stuff, I know you haven't finished it yet, but what are your thoughts thus far?
I don't even need to finish it to say that I absolutely love it. I have been enjoying the whole thing, the way they're doing everything. I've been jumping around a little bit, and I read through some of the synopses, which obviously gave some spoilers. So I like what they're doing. I'm excited to see how it all. That's one of the reasons why I like time travel plots too, is because you kind of know the ending, and then you get to see how it goes, gets to that point. And for me, that's kind of how I'm watching the whole season. Of like I kind of know what happens loosely, but I don't know the details, and now I'm excited to watch through and see all the details. And let me just tell you, the Voyager A, she can do no wrong in my book.
Ooh, we're gonna talk about it.
It's fine. She's perfect. So that is the only answer that anyone needs to discuss. But I loved it. I love this whole thing so far. I think it's been great.
How about you, Trevor?
Kind of obsessed. So I did a really weird thing in that one, I wanted this show to get a lot of watches and views and as much attention as humanly possible. So the minute I was awake on the first, I turned it on, started watched like 2.5 episodes, and then had to jump into work. So I just let it play, and just kept coming back to revisit where I had left off, but let it run through as much as I could. So I've actually, I think, seen it probably twice all the way through, which is a little ridiculous, but it's just because it's been on my television constantly. And it's played certainly more than that. And I kind of love it. Like I have nitpicks. They're very, very minor. I have a little nitpick about the Voyager A, but it's about the interior, it's not the exterior. I think she's a beautiful ship. I just want the exterior to match the interior, and it doesn't seem to do that.
Agree.
It's a little TARDIS-y, which is weird, and also like not a single chair on that ship looks remotely comfortable. And as an almost 48-year-old man, I just need a chair that I can sit in and not feel like my back is about to burst into flame. Shut up, Matt. I know you were going to make a joke about me being on fire, and you just need to stop it.
You know, I wasn't. I was going to let it slide.
All right. I'll allow it. Anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed everybody. So everyone's up to the point where a certain next-gen character has made an appearance, correct?
I was going to ask, how do we feel about spoilers, Matt?
Oh, I know all of the spoilers. Like, I know about Wesley, and like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So everyone, first of all, I was one of the first people to like jump up and down and dance for Will Wheaton when he showed up in Picard 2. Though lots and lots of folks were a little bit like, okay, that was just Will Wheaton. That wasn't really Wesley Crusher. It was just kind of Will like geeking out on the fact that he got to be in a bit scene to resolve a character loop that they clearly hadn't closed and needed to close quickly. So that this happened, I'm elated not only for Wesley Crusher, but I'm elated for Will Wheaton, and everything that he got to do throughout the season, all the way up until his last scene, which I won't spoil for Matt. But just delighted at every little bit and bob, including I've been extremely critical and vocal about my lack of fondness for the actor that portrays Chakotay.
Yeah.
But I am quite fond of what happens for and to the character.
Indeed.
I think what was done, and frankly, and I'm going to just say it, his performance was delightful.
Yeah.
Delightful. He played the picture, as my daddy would say.
Yeah, he was engaged. He was clearly happy to be back. I just hope that, you know, the actor's more recent missteps and offensive comments, if you are part of a community that he has made comments about, or if he has said anything that in any way offends you, I hope that he has grown to a point where he will at some point be able to acknowledge those comments and in some way rectify having made them. That said,
backpedal is the word you're looking for, I think.
No, you know what? For the punchline, yes. For my actual hopes for him, no, I hope he grows and
yeah, because backpedaling would be like, oh, that's not what I meant. I misspoke. No, he knew what he was doing. He needs to acknowledge and make amends.
He double, triple, and quadrupled down on some of the bullshit that he said. But so my hope for those people that he's offended, myself included, you know, I hope that there's some sort of rectifying of those comments. That all of that being said, which I've used that phrase ad nauseum at this point, very happy for his character, enjoyed his performance in the character, and kind of love that we didn't quite get I'm not a JC shipper. I have found it to be highly anti-feminist, that the mere suggestion that the first time we have a female captain leading a show, she therefore must fall in love with her male first officer. I find it gross and weird. Sorry if you are a JC shipper, but I find the whole concept gross and weird. And like how they both made it a significant relationship for the two of them, but not a clearly defined romantic relationship.
Yes.
So anyway, I've gone way past top thoughts and started delving into some deep dive stuff, and so I will stop.
No, you're totally fine. I'll start by piggybacking off of that. I love that they've not leaned into it too much, but have highlighted what we knew from Voyager. They do have a deeply intimate friendship, but to me, I'm still seeing it as platonic. It is an intimate but platonic relationship. I'm very happy for it. I loved this season. I agree with what Joanne was saying. I think the Prodigy crew have done a superb job. I think they do season long really well. I think the format of a 22-minute episode with its challenges really provides them an opportunity to shine. I tweeted out the other day something that I love that's happening in Prodigy is we skip past the whole needing to convince the rest of the crew that something insane is possible, even though they have something insane happen every damn week. So that's lovely. There are a couple of bits and moments where I'm like, well, that was easy, but like the runtime that they have geared towards children, it still works. All of the crew, like everybody has a really lovely arc. Like I found myself annoyed with Dal, for example. At first, I felt like he was backsliding, but he really grows into it. And I won't fully spoil it, but I will say that by the end, like where the conclusions he starts to make and the choices he starts to make are well earned and show extreme growth on his part. I loved all of the visuals. I think this is a beautiful show. It's beautifully animated. I love the silhouette of Voyager A. I agree about the interior. It's not my favorite. It feels clunky. Like I like the bridge generally, but like everybody being boxed into their tiny little corner, and it like the proportions just seem off. And I don't know if it's like I've been thinking a lot about this. I've wondered if it's just challenges with animation versus, if you were designing something that actual in life humans would be moving around. Because like the bridge on this ship that is more than twice the size of the original Voyager is less than half the size of Voyager's bridge, which seems odd. But maybe it's just more advanced and they need fewer stations, whatever. But I love cetacean ops. I fucking love Jillian, and I am potentially going to spoil something because I'm not sure where you're at, Matt. But in Mirror Jillian with her scar over her eye, and like hearing that whale say "All hail the Terran Empire" had me cackling. It was so fucking funny. Jankum saying even the whales are evil, so good. At first, when I was watching that episode, I was like, "Wait a minute, the whole Terran Empire is backsliding since what we saw in Deep Space." And no, that's on point. Yeah, that makes sense. I love the cameos. I love that they feel earned and they're not just fan servicey. The visual Easter eggs are not just hey look, we know Star Trek. They're like they fit in the universe. Yeah, I'm getting beyond top thoughts too and getting into detail-y, but yeah, their storytelling is just excellent. Each episode is distinct, but then ties into the last. Something from 5 episodes ago will be relevant, and it's not hard to remember even on a binge. That will be my last thought before we start talking about other things more specifically. Um, this is the first Trek show that we've been able to binge on a first watch, right? And I'm finding it interesting. I watched it a little differently than others have described. I watched like 4 to 6 episodes at a time, and I like forced my ADHD brain to like focus. You're going to watch this, and it wasn't as much of a challenge as I thought it would be. It was more of a challenge to find the time to watch more of them because I wanted to actually sit down and focus on it. And now I've got it on in the background for my third run. I love it. Kudos to the whole team.
I will say Netflix could do a better job with their descriptions and
Mm,
um they weren't the flex I think that they thought they were, and a little too spoilery, I think, at times. I don't know if it's just, it's my TV or how I downloaded shit, but I didn't always see the title either, like in the
I
thumbnail.
couldn't either. Yeah.
So that
Apparently
was
that's been
driving me
noted.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a tweet from Aaron saying they've noted it, and apparently Netflix is working on fixing it because the episode title should be there for everybody. And the other thing that I've noticed on Netflix for me was the sound. I have had to change, and this is constant for me in Netflix. I have to constantly change my sound. I have to raise the volume for dialogue and bring it down the second any kind of action starts.
Hmm.
It drives me nuts. I've heard some people say on their Apple TV that doesn't happen, but on my Roku TV and on my computer it happens.
Yeah. No, I don't have that. Well, I think I have a Google TV. Yeah. But it's pretty okay. But I also have, like, what
I
is
will
this
say,
bullshit with Netflix and the standard versus the 4K version? Anyway, I hate Netflix. I just joined to watch Prodigy.
Yeah, same.
I
Matt,
will
you were
say,
anything?
yeah, I don't have. I do it on my Apple TV. Chatia. I feel like Worf. Um, I I don't have that issue on my Apple TV, but I also have Apple TV and like a Bose soundbar, which is supposed to balance things out. So I will say, like, if anyone's ever considering, like, it's highly worth it. So,
I mean, I've
but
got the best sound setup for a Roku TV that it only happens on Netflix, apparently.
right.
With the
Well,
title
Netflix is
thing,
shit.
with respect to Netflix, they have only had 52 weeks to work this out.
Yeah.
That's true. It's a very quick turnaround. It's hard to put something up that was already made and you buy to just put it on a streaming platform that you helped create an entire market for. She just wants to have so much attention.
Yes.
There's a lot of fireworks going on outside, so I'm sorry if this is. I think the Trazodone may finally.
No, I think it's only distracting to you. Everybody loves seeing dogs.
Thank you. Oh my God, the tongue in the mouth. A lot. Anyway, I do want to make one quick comment. Going back to the JC thing and Janeway and Chakotay, I have always had this thing where I firmly believe there is a special relationship between the first officer and the captain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there should be. And I think obviously Janeway and Chakotay, their history has lended itself a little more towards the should we, shouldn't we end of things. But I do think that they always finally agreed that, like, I think this is more professional and compassionate than it is romantic. And so, again, I don't know exactly all of, I have not seen the ending of the JC in Prodigy, but I know enough people have said that it doesn't seem like it's, they leaned into the romance, which to me makes sense. And that goes back to like Kirk and Spock too. I don't necessarily think that, Kirk and Spock had to be in love in a romantic way to be fully in love. To be fully in love, like, as captain and first officer, respect
Right.
you can have. And I've said that on other streams too, that I wish more people would be more open-minded in the idea of loving someone who you're not necessarily having sex with. Like,
yes.
You can have such a deep, meaningful, true love with someone and just be friends with them.
Yeah.
And like just be, and then honestly, like that sometimes is more important because it's not something that everyone always, wants to focus on. And you think that, oh, your friends come second, but like sometimes, I don't know. It's maybe a little projecting right now anyway, but
it was beautifully, what you're saying though, Matt, was beautifully depicted in Picard 1, Nepenthe, with Riker and Jean-Luc sitting on that bench, arms around each other, talking about both the good old days and where they are currently and where they've got to go and what Jean-Luc has gotten himself into. that relationship, that friendship, that love didn't need
Do
to be
they-
sexualized in order to acknowledge that they really care about each other.
Don't they at one point, doesn't Riker say I love you to him?
Yeah, they say the words.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
say I love you too. Like they
Yeah.
they are, and I think that is such an important thing. Obviously, you know, in Star Trek, the shipping has always it has a long and very, you know, regal history that saved the franchise, and we all know that. But I think that we jump too close. And Trev, you brought up a great point on that. Of she doesn't get her own center seat, and she has to be in love with her first officer, who is a terrorist and not always the best. Like we're not. They got there, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We could argue, you know, but like this is it. Well, like let's give her a little better. You know, she, I guarantee, has some, you know, passive guy at home. Mark probably
Yeah.
leaves his wife, and she somehow finds a way to make her die in a shuttle accident when they get back to, you know, Earth.
Mark or Maggie, like there's no reason
Sure,
to,
yeah, there's
to
no
paint
reason
Janeway into a corner. But the whole Chakotay thing, like it just always rubbed me
Just
the
not
wrong way
Chakotay,
because
yeah.
of the fact that, like, not just because of the character being the first female captain, like to lead a series, but like the shit that they put Kate Mulgrew through,
Mm.
particularly in her first one, or you know, first and second
Mhm.
season. And now we've got to be like, okay, also, could you potentially share
Right.
the chairs with your love interest? Like, it's like, come
Yeah.
on, like, just
And that-
stop soap
Yeah.
operizing Star Trek. That was a very messed
Yeah,
up.
the fact that they had her reshoot, they already had to reshoot a bunch of the pilot because they hired a terrible actress for that role until they got Kate Mulgrew in there. But then they
miscast
make
her.
They
Yeah, and then-
miscast, yes.
Yeah, and then they make Kate Mulgrew redo half of the pilot with a different hairdo. Like, ridiculous. And by the way, release the shoulder cut. I want to see it. That hair was great.
Hey, thank you for doing all of that on such short notice, but could you do it differently, but with your hair up?
Yeah.
The urge
wild.
to punch someone must have been overwhelming.
Oh God. On Chakotay, I found he was sort of like the opposite of Voyager as a whole. I thought he was more interesting and better early on, and then just got dull. And
Yeah.
like the rumors and the interviews, like he had said at some point that he got bored and he told the writers, give me one good scene. He had said that he doesn't care to read the whole script. He just looked for his part. Like, he checked out. The actor checked out. And so the character suffered. For him and Janeway, it rubbed me the wrong way too, but I did not mind them generally exploring it given the circumstances, because it's very, very real. You're stuck 75,000 light years from home. You've got this handsome first officer. There is a connection there, and wondering what kind of connection is this going to be, I think makes sense. But I'm glad that they didn't move even remotely beyond like some lingering looks. Maybe on that planet they were going to go that way, but then that got cut off, and they re-leaned into the professional life. The hinting at a little bit early on, I kind of got it, but I'm super glad that they didn't do any more. It would have been creepy.
The particular rub for me was this isn't the first Captain and XO that we had that were heterosexual presenting opposite gender. So Cisco and Kira never had a remote inkling of sexual interest in one another until the Mirror Universe. But we've had this conversation before in previous episodes of the Salon, where clearly Mirror Kira was just using sex as a weapon and as a tool, and there's a whole conversation about
who among us,
sexuality, right? But like in the Prime universe, there was no inkling of sexual attraction between the two of them, and we were fine with it. But the second the woman is the one who outranks the man, she has to be like, oh, well, he's so dreamy. And I'm just like, bleh, stop it. Like, stop doing that.
I will say, the only thing whenever we see Janeway and Chakotay in any type of romantic, I always get this feeling from Janeway that she looks at it and she's like, it's probably a good dick. And she's never like, oh, Chakotay, what do you think I should do? Like, oh, Chakotay. There's always this element of like,
she's still
I'm
in
the
charge.
captain, but you could probably dick me down pretty well. And she's always like, do I want to do it? And she's always, I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna wait for now. There's always.
I was going to say, Stan, get your button ready because we all know Janeway's a top.
Yeah.
There it is. Yeah. And obviously Chakotay is a sub bitch.
And good for him. More straight men need to get into it.
We're not shaming.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, not at all. I'm gonna shame him as a actor, but
yeah.
I will say, like, to your point, Stan, with when they are on that planet, and I don't remember the exact episode, the idea that they were both like, you know what, we're gonna be stuck here for the rest of our lives. We both know each other. We've had this thing. We've been going, and then they get to that moment where they're like, oh, this could actually, like, we weren't sure up until now, and like now we are sure that we could probably make this work. And then they get taken away, and they both go, I'm glad we acknowledged that. I'm glad we both found out. This deepened our friendship. It deepened our connection as professionals, but we don't need to explore it beyond that.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing I always respected was they already got to that point. They already said, all right, push comes to shove. Yes, we respect and love each other enough that we can do this, but we're not going to because we both know that it's not the right thing.
Also, and I'm gonna be a real bitch to hopefully not too many in the audience, but most JC shippers I know or I've seen online are women who either identify with Janeway or just happen to find Robert Beltran attractive. Like I just don't like I said, they've explored it and there's some interesting stuff there, but like that they leaned in on it as an intimate friendship makes infinitely more sense to me. But on Chakotay specifically in season 2 of Prodigy, like Picard season 3 did for Worf, this season made me a fan of Chakotay, which I thought was impossible. I thought, like others had said earlier, I find the actor frustrating, generally speaking, because he has made some really shitty statements about several groups of people, and was disrespectful towards the strike last year. But his performance in this show was delightful, and what the Prodigy team put together for Chakotay, for his relationship with Janeway, for his mentorship with the kids, I thought was delightful, absolutely delightful. I truly hope that they get a season 3, but I also hope that Chakotay's just done. I thought there is a perfect end to his story baked into season 2. He gets a full arc, he gets full character growth, and he gets a ship. And he gets a ship, and he convinces somebody he gets somebody back in the fight. Let's leave it there. They're plenty more stories to tell in season 3. They set it up beautifully, and we don't need Chakotay to be part of it. Let's have more of whatever is after a Vice Admiral Janeway.
Let's have more Jerry Ryan and Janeway crossover. Give us that.
So quick spoiler: they have caught up to Picard timeline. That's no, they're at
Picard 1.
Right? Yeah,
Picard 1 flashbacks.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'll just say it, Matt, because this isn't really a spoiler, but like
I don't care about spoilers.
I know, but there are going to be some things that'll be nice for you to experience on your own first watch. But the last episode, they show the Mars attack, and so there's some interesting stuff that could be part of a season 3.
Which is very different than the movie Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is a great movie.
Although, I was just going to say, it's a great movie, though.
It is so stupid. It is so good.
They
thought Prodigy
Congress.
Yeah. And we still have 2 out of 3 branches of government. And hey, that's not bad.
I thought Prodigy did a I'm like, I don't want to talk about that. I thought Prodigy did a great job. Trev, something you said earlier though about exploring, I think the captain first officer relationship was very much a theme, or a motif that kind of ran throughout the season, as well. And I thought they did a really good job of kind of highlighting that this is a really special relationship, and it's important. And I think it's, you know, it shaped kind of, I think, Chakotay, with his whole first officer and that whole endeavor. And, then, well, yeah, Doll. And I mean, it was, I think they explored all of that the nature of that relationship being important and dynamic and rich. I thought they did a really good job of that.
Particularly because they didn't land on a romantic note. It
Exactly.
really does. Yeah, it really does put a nice, I don't know, sort of hug around the whole idea of that relationship being, to what Matt's point earlier, it's just a unique dynamic. There's no, it's always going to be intimate. It doesn't have to be sexual.
And they give us several really good captain or commanding officer and first officer relationships. Gwen and Dal, Commander Tysus and Admiral Janeway, Captain Chakotay and Adric, like, and they're all at different points of that relationship. Some are just starting, some have been for years. It was really cool to see, like, you and this was a theme in the season as well. You need your crew. You need to stick together. You need people you can trust. You need your family. Just delightful. Let's talk about the ship. I want to talk about the ship. I love the Voyager A. I want to be very clear about that. But I agree, the inside looks incredibly uncomfortable. I do love cetacean ops. The chairs look insane, but the bridge is whatever.
Let's be clear, that bridge is, it's almost like Janeway is always operating out of the battle bridge.
Like, and they reference a battle bridge, but then we don't see it. I was so bummed. More timey-wimey shenanigans.
There she is.
She's back.
Well, sorry.
What were you saying about?
I had to phase out for a second.
Yeah, it happens.
I don't know where I cut out, but like it makes sense to me that she's just always in the battle bridge, because that's why it's so small.
Yeah.
Like that has to be the only thing that Janeway's like, no, fuck that. I'm going to operate out of the middle of the ship constantly, because I actually see the fact that the bridge being on the top, most exposed part, is probably a tactical disadvantage. But
Gear of Hell, she actually saw the freaking wall ripped open.
Yeah.
It was basically almost sucked into space.
Yeah. And,
see that making someone retreat.
Yeah.
Oopsie.
I liked Shuttle Bay 3. I thought it was cool that there was something that's a little more covert.
I like that it came out the side.
Yes.
I like that we had, it was very super yacht. I don't know how many people look at videos of super yachts, but like, it's a real big fucker if it like has the tender that comes out the side.
That comes out. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else? Like, I think Trevor, you said it. It's sort of like the TARDIS, where and like Discovery was this way as well. It's like where is all that space? Like 16 holodecks, which honestly for 800 people, I can kind of see it if that's shit's booked out for weeks. But like, where?
I'm wondering how many of those were like holo suites versus a full holodeck.
Sure.
Like how many of those were just like a closet that you walked into and then you were like, oh, this is beautiful, because you don't have to worry about, physical restraints.
I mean, how much room do you need for Janeway's holo novel where you're a nanny in the 1800s?
That was the real fuck. That and the replicator burning shit. Like, God, Voyager writers. Ugh. Yeah, but I also wish the impulse engines still were red. They were all gray. I did not.
So,
but whatever, minor thing.
Weirdly enough, I'm going to point this out. If you go back and look in season 1, when we saw all the Sovereign class ships, they also didn't have red impulse engines. I'm wondering if there's something in the animation style that, like, that layering of giving a red that is somehow glowing that looks right isn't they've been going back and forth. I don't know, obviously this is spitballing, but if you look at it every single time, you don't have red impulse engines really in Prodigy. So I'm wondering if there's like a technical reason for that they just can't get it right.
The Sovereign ones, I thought it was just because they weren't moving, but who knows?
No, they were like a gray hull panel. It didn't even look like they were turned off. It looked like they weren't rendered, which, I mean, maybe they just didn't get to it, but
time.
Yeah.
Or
which is exactly
technology.
What happened in the stupid season 1 Picard fleet excuse.
Yeah.
They didn't have time.
And a pandemic was starting, but
don't reach out to Cryptic Studios fast enough. It's fine.
Yeah, silliness.
Cryptic also, shout out. Again, this is off the rails, and this isn't a real, but like, shout out to fucking Cryptic Studios. Like, they have actually held up Star Trek in a way that I'm very happy for, because they've deserved it, because they were the bridge from 2008 to anything in Discovery in 2016. But like, they have really gotten they have some of the best people that work for them. I don't know if any of you have ever talked to some of the graphic people, and just like the creativity and the willingness to reach out and say, hey, we want to pull people in. And I think it's great that they're getting some representation now. I think that, and it has to be so exciting for graphic designers who love Star Trek to be able to build the physical 3D model of their favorite ships and have some I just, as a ship whore myself, like, to be able to say, like, oh no, we're going to alter this, or we're going to do this for this reason, and you would know that all of them think that way too, is just really incredible. So, small sidebar.
I just not to like, I don't want to bookend our conversation about the Voyager eggs. So we want to keep talking about it. We should talk about it. But I just remember, I think I said, I don't know if I said it in a text to you or if I said it to a salon chat, but I'm like, were we inspired by the Nostromo, or is it just a coincidence that this looks like the 1979 version of a spaceship? Like, the inside, like, everything's metal and futuristic. Like, it just doesn't seem remotely comfortable. And I get that attention and details should be paid to the characters and not the background, but like, Matt, you're not the only ship whore in the group. Like, I'm a sucker for the interior. Like, you like the aesthetic of the exterior ship as well as the interior. I just want to be comfy and live in Guinan's quarters on the Enterprise D for the rest of my life. So I am drawn to interiors that are unique or interesting, and none of these were, which felt weird for a story that was so compelling. I'm like, give them an environment that matches the level of, because the story was beautiful. Like, I don't, under ordinary circumstances, like if we're just in like a deep conversation, I'll cry at the drop of a hat, but it takes a lot for television to get me to cry. I cried at the end of this show.
Yeah.
When I actually got to the end after having watched all of them and understood the whole story, I wept. So I'm just like, this is a beautiful story. It would have been nice if the surroundings matched the tape.
And off the ship they do. Like, on in the background right now is the odd Kazon race episode. Kazon racing, actual ship racing episode.
Right.
And like the detail in like their ship architecture is really cool. Again, kudos to Prodigy for making that nonsense from Voyager actually work. But yeah, all of the planets really cool. The space scenes are really cool. It was just the Voyager interior that I was like, I wish it was a little different.
I actually kind of got, it was a minor argument, just a couple back and forth subtweets with somebody online. And I pointed out, like, you have to remember they're in the middle of going from Voyager, which was very, you have to admit, very gray. Very, I mean, it was 90s gray. It was so everything was softer anyway. It wasn't as harsh and all that. But like from that to what we're gonna see eventually in Picard season one of those just straight up military interiors. I mean, they are brutal. Like I'm just season three softened them a little bit with the correct lighting and some warm, 200 Kelvin lighting rather than, the stark fluorescence. But like it kind of makes sense to me that they churned this ship out. She's not designed necessarily. I mean, I guess this one is supposed to be more designed for comfort, but like, don't get me wrong, I'm not defending. I think they could have done a much better job, but I also kind of understand it in character, like in universe too. So I guess to me, it doesn't detract it as much, especially when you see like Prodigy, the very first, the USS Protostar, very cold, very just sleek. Everything's polished. Everything is. So if you think of it like, okay, that's that era then. They went from the very warm sovereign red to this like very cold Dominion. We need to be able to hose off the blood from the bulkheads.
Yeah.
As a bridge between those aesthetics, I will jump onto that theory, but I'm still stuck on the bridge.
Yeah.
Because the bridge itself was like, why is this so tiny? Why does this look impossible to maneuver around? Like to get to the turbo lift, you have to climb over 16 people. Like it just doesn't. It's just odd, and it didn't take me out of the story. Like the story was beautiful, love it, love everything about the entire series, but like just visually, it just was intrusive and disruptive, and I was like, wait, why are we doing this?
The last thing I want to say on ships before we talk about something else, unless you all want to keep going, is the only other. I don't even mean to say this is negative. Like all that I'm saying about the interior of Voyager A, I don't mean to be overly negative. It wasn't the aesthetic I would have gone for. It's fine, it works, and I like that headcanon from Matt. But one other thing that I thought was interesting, and like this happened in Deep Space Nine as well, the proportion between the Protostar and the Voyager A feels very off to me. Like the Protostar is, isn't not 3 to 5 decks? Isn't it not supposed to be tiny?
It should be. So this is something that has, and I've really tried hard to swallow this and not bring, but like it is very Enterprise D docked at DS9. It is very like, and because I'm having that same issue of like, technically, this tiny little thing is a Sovereign class docked at Deep Space Nine. Like that is, she's little, but then you look at the episode and it's completely out of proportion. Technically, the Defiant should be this big. Next to, and that's
the proportion was always weird.
Yeah, and the Protostar is even smaller than the Defiant, really. Yeah. Like, she has those big nacelles that stick off, but, like, the actual physical structure is only, like, half the size of the Defiant.
Yeah, it's supposed to work with, like, what was his crew, like, 20 or less?
Oh, it was, like, what, 23? And then it was, like, which would mean, like, 5 at a time, basically.
Yeah.
And so which, I mean, the Defiant was 50. So, but it doesn't really, it does kind of pull you out of it when you see them next to each other. Or, I mean, they're not docked technically, so
they look cool as hell. I was just like, I felt like the Protostar should be smaller.
Yeah, maybe the
Protostar. But again, proportions have always been off, and yes.
You can tell which is closer. Like which one's closer to you, but you don't know how much closer.
Exactly. Like the Protostar is actually here, and Voyager's 3.5 miles off.
Yes. Somebody pick a topic and start us off. I'm going to use the restroom.
Joanne, you're in charge. What are we talking about?
I'm like, oh, it's caught off guard. So we talked about the ships. We talked about the relationships. Let's talk about Zero. What did you guys think about that whole transformation?
So this is the one thing I have to say. I do not know anything about this. So.
Oh, right.
And I'm not. It's not anything. You guys can talk, but I'm just not going to have any input. So.
I kind of loved everything about it, including there's a certain, I don't know what the word is, but I keep going to the word beauty, in sort of longing for something, achieving it, and it not necessarily being what you thought it was going to be. There's just you were fine the way that you were. You
Yeah.
didn't need to change. You didn't need to transform into something else, in order to fulfill everything that you thought you needed to fulfill. And don't take that the wrong way. That's meant in a loving way of like you're beautiful the way you are, regardless of who you are and what you look like.
No, I agree. At first I was very upset actually. Like,
Mhm.
where did this come from?
Are we
And
talking about Zero?
yeah, we're talking
Yeah.
about Zero.
Yes, I want to talk about this.
And I was a little angry. Like,
Mhm.
what is this about? Because I don't know where it came from. But I do like kind of how it progressed,
Mhm.
and how it just kind of worked itself out and what was really kind of at the core. Like, it didn't go the way that I thought at all, right? Um, I also loved kind of at the end, or not at the end, but kind of towards in the middle, that transformation of, I felt really kind of seen, right? As a person who has mobility issues, and I use a cane. I loved seeing Zero kind of in that role, and still being, helpful and useful, in ways that were appropriate to them. So that was really meaningful to me. But yeah, it took me on an emotional journey for sure to just kind of see like what's underneath this? Like, what is this message? What is this about?
I'm glad you brought that up, and I was particularly interested in your perspective because we've talked about this with other episodes and seasons that we've talked about. Trek has a a wonky history with its depiction of disability, and I felt similarly when I saw Dal damaged. In fact, the episode that he gets damaged is on right now, and I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting to see. Like this, we've seen. I felt a little bit of a neurodivergent parallel with Zero. And now we're going to see. Oh, he has a disability, and then they give him a quick body change, and it's like, ooh, that feels weird. But then, and there were a couple of things this season where I was like, oh, this feels weird. But then you let them cook, and they I'm an able-bodied person, but I felt more comfortable with their depiction of disability than any other in Trek.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And Zero is a they, by the way.
Oh, thank
But
you. Sorry.
but I thought that was, really well, like, because they acknowledged it, like, and said, I knew this body was not going to hold up long. I just thought I would have more time. I mean, and that's maybe it hit me because that's very much where I am,
Mm,
like, oh, I didn't think that I would be, in the middle of my life, like facing kind of complete disability. So that's a very real sort of emotion, but still to just kind of like say, but I'm going to do, all that I have the ability to do. And nobody really questioned that. They let Zero do that. I thought
yeah.
that was brilliant. But actually, I thought the initial sort of transformation, I don't know, I thought they were going to take another path. And I think that's what had me like you, Trev. I'm like, Zero is fine the way they are. Like, so I thought I didn't know what was kind of compelling that sort of desire. Was it Magel, or was it always there and I just never saw it?
I saw some hints early on, and then when Majel got into the mix, I thought it was interesting because they were like, Zero had this moment of like, "Hey, you shouldn't do that," and I'm like, "Oh, that thing that you did all the time in season one, being in people's thoughts.
That was my
You
first
finally
thought,
figured
and
out
he
what
even
privacy
says it.
is."
They even say it. They even say it later on, like, "Oh, please don't do that, bitch. You do it all the time.
Yes.
Just because you're a non-corporeal life form, somehow now you get to play by
Yes.
different rules."
Um, Speaking of, I do love the introduction of Majel. I thought that there was one episode where Majel says logical and illogical an annoying amount of times. Like, I get it, you're Vulcan. And then I had to remind myself, this is this is a show for new fans, for kids and families, for all of us, but they're also introducing the concept of Vulcans to new fans. So it's like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. And then they cooled it on the logic and illogicalness of it as they moved on. But I thought Majel was a really interesting addition. Not only did we see Magel's interaction with the entire crew, but that romantic relationship building with her and Zero, especially as, like, they don't definitively say, though, given what happens at the end, it kind of seems like Gwen and Dal have decided that, like, we're not going to be romantically involved, right? Is that what others
That's
felt as
kind of
well?
what I got from
Yeah.
it too. Yeah.
Same.
Like, even if that ending wasn't exactly what happened, I thought throughout the season they were getting to we're not going to be romantically linked anymore. We're just going to be friends.
But also, while we're this kind of harkens back to Chakotay and Janeway, to Will and Deanna. Like, while we're serving together, while there's some sort of reporting relationship involved in our dynamic, let's put the romance on the back burner.
Yeah.
Because, let's admit, Star Trek hasn't been good about that either, right? Throughout the years. And that's, it's a question for us because it's a question in our universe, right? About, you guys work together and this person is like your direct superior. This is not okay, but it's kind of been okay in the Star Trek universe. And I think this was a very nice kind of way to explore it, which is why I think that whole, like I said, kind of theme or motif of the officer first officer relationship kind of ran through the season to kind of highlight that we can have strong relationships, and work together. And we understand they develop because you work, we say it all the time, you work more, you're with people you work with more than your family sometimes. So it's understandable how these things come up, but you still can have deep affection and relationship and still get the job done. I loved Gwen's kind of throughout all the time, or Gwen and Dahl reminding each other the mission comes first.
Yes.
The mission comes first.
You hear that, Worf? Just kidding. That was Cisco's fault. But yeah, this might be something to do as a Solana Way team at some point, because I am fascinated by the like, what are the policies? Like, how does it work, etc. Like, I knew somebody who worked at Amazon, and she said that their policy was that you can express interest once and then it's on the other party. They can never acknowledge it. They might say yes or no, but you can ask somebody out and you have to leave it alone until, like, if you're making a face, Matt. I don't think in like a direct reporting situation, but just like,
that's what I'm just like, the micromanaging of people's relationships at Amazon, as well as their urinary schedule. But
but see, this particular policy is like, wow, I was actually surprised that Amazon had something that, from my perspective, and this former colleague who worked there was saying that it works out really well, because it's an anti-harassment policy is what it really boils down to. You can express interest in somebody once, and then it is up to them to acknowledge or not, and that's it. So, like, I'm fascinated in Starfleet when, like, you're on a ship, you will be on a ship for, depending on your role, 3-month stints, 5-year stints. We've seen both depicted. So what are the rules? Like, does somebody have to resign? Is it different for anybody but the captain or anybody but senior officers? Because I think the circumstances being what they are, it's not just like, working at some corporate whatever on Earth. There are millions of people in this country. Go shack somebody else. You're not going to fuck with our bottom line here. But on a Starfleet ship, you're one of 800 people for the next 5 years. It doesn't seem realistic to say nothing. So what would those policies be? How do you keep mission focused, but also recognize? I was going to say human nature, but nature.
Nature. And the answer seems to play out, at least in the 2370s. The answer seems to play out in lessons. And there are no rules because #Gene's vision. People have evolved to a point where these things don't involve conflict, and everyone just kind of skips merrily along into the future. But one of the things I love about that episode is that it immediately highlights the implications for everyone around the couple. So Riker suddenly couldn't make reasonable decisions because he felt like he was being pressured to give in to the captain's girlfriend. Like there creates an environment that doesn't just affect the two people involved; it affects the ship.
I hated the way that they depicted that though, because like it felt ham-fisted for sure. Like Riker immediately being like, "Oh, I don't know what to do." Like, dude, you're the first officer. Act like it. Have a conversation with the captain.
His interaction with her felt very, and then it pauses and they both look at the camera and say, "Now, what would you do in this situation?"
Yes.
But in terms of the conversation with he and Picard, it played out like Will Riker didn't know how to be a first officer. So like it shortchanged in both scenarios. But the policy appears to be we've evolved to a point where, which is ridiculous. The evolution should be, well, this is never a consideration. I would never try to date someone that reports to me. That would be inappropriate. Like that would be the natural evolution.
But does she report to the captain? She reports to the first officer as a department.
Technically, everyone does. I mean, it's like if you're the CEO of a company, you shouldn't be shagging a director who reports to a VP.
I think the whole thing is the only person on a ship that a captain can have an intimate relationship with would be like a civilian. Like that way they are completely out of, like they are in no way under, the only thing that they are connected with is the captain is keeping them alive in hopefully most situations.
Yes.
You know, and so you would think that the captain would treat them the same way they would treat any civilian, because they are under their protection. So, but I would think that Starfleet would have it and say, hey, you know, you're welcome to explore this. However, you need to switch departments. Like you have to do something.
That's what it is at my job. You can't. Nobody in a department can be in a relationship. It's not even a direct report kind of thing. It's the department as a whole.
And see, I think that makes sense. And you know, you can also use the whole Greek analogy of, you know, you put the levers together to fight harder next to each other, because they can see what they're fighting for, type of thing. But like, I feel like on a starship, you kind of lose. Well, they also swallowed, and that was a sign of bravery.
Yes.
It was like I just feel like
very brave.
I'm a very brave man.
I'm not a very brave man. I'm sorry.
We know.
I think I must be selfish because I'm like, I'm not fighting for you, but
this is my job.
This is my job.
Yeah.
Bitch, I'm just trying to get a paycheck. I'm trying to get those replicator credits. Thank you.
Yes. What else about season 2 that we haven't talked about?
We talked about Wesley.
Oh, I did want to bring one thing up. Why are there not even cadets on starships now? What program is this pre-cadet thing? Because they're not like officers. Like, they're all supposed to be cadets? Correct?
I think they're academy hopefuls, which my headcanon is that they're either going, after a year or whatever, they're either going to be accepted into the academy or they're going to become non-coms.
The weird
like,
thing
that's what
about
I'm
that was
confused
like
about, yeah.
Majel wearing cadet
Nova Squad.
bars
Oh yeah, that
and
too.
a Nova Squad badge. So I'm like, was she a cadet and the rest of them are acting warrant officers who are cadets in training? Like, it was very,
I thought Nova Squad, they were cadets, and
yeah,
then the Protostar folk were warrant officers, like the
That's what
hopefuls.
I thought too.
Yeah.
but they didn't. There were times where both the EMH and others referred to all of them collectively as Academy
As
hopeful,
a
which was very strange.
Yeah. I mean, you hope to continue when you're a first year cadet.
Academy
Stretch.
hopeful.
But
All
I'm
right,
like,
well,
there was Nova Squadron. Like, they were already, like, they shouldn't have been hopefuls. Like,
Yeah.
they were the
That's
cream of
why
the
I was
crop,
hearing,
right? Yeah.
yeah,
And they also have those
it's
separate
ambiguous.
uniforms? Like,
Yeah. Well, and I thought they were on Voyager as like a training thing.
but if they're not in the academy,
Did they
but
have the
then
same uniforms on?
Or
don't
very,
remember.
very similar ones.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'd
I
have to
thought
go,
the
I'd
Protoss.
honestly have to go back and look.
Yeah, I thought they were cadets and they were on the ship as a training thing. It's part of the academy because I take it that Janeway has some connection to the academy. She's certainly not the chancellor, but like she's in an operations role of some sort. And the Protostar kids, she pulled them from the training on Earth specifically because they were going to address that wormhole that they first. Wow, I cannot speak tonight. That they had firsthand participation in
opened?
creating. Yes, clean up your own mess. That's what it was.
I mean, that was what I always got to, and I did appreciate that. I just didn't understand that, like, they're at the academy and they're studying, but they're not cadets, and they're not like I don't get where we're at in this whole, like.
It felt like a prep academy. Like they were they were in the prep classes.
I kind of would love if. Then this is. I'm sure this probably won't happen, but it would be really fun if we got more explanation in Starfleet Academy, the new, I don't, whatever we're calling that, explaining like, oh, this is the process of going through the academy, and these are what we do, and this is how it happened. Obviously, it's going to be in the 32nd century, so it's probably not going to have anything to like looking like what
Updated.
Starfleet Academy does. Yeah, I mean they'll do their own thing, but it would be really interesting to see because like we saw Wesley Crusher. He had to do those tests to get into the academy, but besides that, he was on the Enterprise, but he wasn't really doing. He was doing stuff, but like most people wouldn't have been doing what he was doing. So is that like a common thing that you go and you are a civilian on a starship for a while to see how it happens, and then you go to the academy, or is this something that is special? Anyway,
and they play Parisi squares. We see it depicted. That was exciting.
We saw Parisi squares, yes.
Yeah. And I see how it's incredibly fucking dangerous. These kids should not be playing it.
They weren't wearing those terrible 80s blue Lycra uniforms.
I think they should have been. That they should have done a lower decks with that. Also, there's something we need to talk about. Best line of the series so far. I haven't seen a crew this dysfunctional since the
Cerritos.
Yes.
And the way he says it, since the Cerritos.
That was funny. That was very funny.
Which makes me think maybe we're going to see something in season 5. But.
Oh, I hope so. The cameos were great. Like what Easter eggs we got, like her saying, I promised Admiral Picard I wouldn't get lost in the Delta Quadrant again. Like referencing the Romulan evacuation. It was like, ooh, it's looming. It's looming.
I'm shocked we didn't see Captain Kim. I thought for sure we were going to see it.
I'm fine with
I
it.
think it's funny that we didn't.
I mean, there's a certain humor in it, but like I'm very surprised that we didn't.
Yeah. Somebody did tweet about being bummed that they didn't have 7 of 9 in this, and I feel like she got 3 seasons on Picard, and hopefully she'll get more in a Legacy. But Aaron Walkie responded saying that they just couldn't. They thought about having her and others, but they weren't going to just pull somebody in to pull somebody in. Like, it needed to make sense. Like, the only thing that I can think of would be like from what we see here, like where would 7 of 9 fit? Maybe instead of Akona in that one episode where they were traversing different realities.
As a yeah.
Scavenging the Voyager.
But there's a reference to Lieutenant Paris. It would have been nice if that was a reference to Commander Paris.
Yeah, or even just Lieutenant Commander Paris. Like, it was interesting that he's still a lieutenant.
Right. Though we don't know that it wasn't. Well, how many years since Voyager ended was this?
I don't think it's enough for it to be Morale.
Okay. She's not old enough yet.
No, as Ensign Paris in Endgame that was 2404, so it's still about 15 years off.
You're right.
It's only been a few years since Voyager at this point. 78. 23, 78, I think. Oh yes, the Captain Tuvik's name drop, so good. I don't think you've gotten to this episode yet, but they shattered Voyager like they did in Shattered, and it was delightful. It's like, contact Captain Tuvik's. So funny. What else? What other little Easter eggs did we get?
What y'all think about Jellicoe?
It works. It worked for me.
It does follow his character. It follows his character
he's a foil
in an awful way. Yeah.
Yeah.
In an awful way, but also in an understandable way. Like, if your job is to get the job done and you're not like the fan who loves these characters, he's not evil. He's not a bad man.
Yeah, I didn't see him as Badmiral, and I found myself disagreeing with him once. The rest of the time, I'm like, no, I get it. Like, he is too close to this. Other people should take over this mission. Not put her back at a desk. Like, don't take her command. But,
he just always seems like he is. And this is honestly something that goes all the way back to Next Gen. So it fits the character. I get that. He always seems to do the whole, like, I made my mind up. This is it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't. I don't give a shit. We're done. We're going with it. Even if it's the wrong choice, this is it. Like, it almost sets it up as like you need that other side that usurps his authority to, or pushes back on his authority to say, hey, you haven't considered everything. But he's gotten to where he has by bulldozing his way through and being right just enough and listening to people just enough that everything works out well.
A 4-shift rotation would work better.
It would give people more downtime.
And he is the answer to your earlier question of what's above a vice admiral and admiral.
No, that's right.
Just an admiral.
Ooh, rear admiral, both upper lower.
Mm-hmm.
Vice admiral, fleet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Rear admiral, lower half. Rear admiral, upper half. Or you can also argue that rear admiral, lower half is,
depending on your job profile, could be a Commodore.
Correct.
Yes.
One half of this salon.
It really is. It's hard to be outranked by Joanne.
Am I a Commodore? I'm not a Commodore.
No, you're an admiral, bitch. Listen.
I was like, you said it's hard to be outranked. And it was like, why? I would follow.
Like,
she could be Ensign Joanne, and I'd be like, yes, ma'am.
true.
Yeah, I feel like
be on this crew arguing with her.
I oscillate between thinking I would probably peak at lieutenant commander and accidentally or through circumstances, not my ambition, end up a captain or an admiral strictly because of the job that I was suited to do, not because they're like, this person should be in command. And I'm not trying to down on myself. I think I'm a support role. I'd be in like Starfleet operations eventually and be like, we have to promote you to admiral in order for you to take this job. You're clearly suited for. I'm like, fine.
You would get
Fine.
to admiral via non-com.
Yeah.
Like it would be like you went all the way, you O'Brien'd it all the way, and they were like,
Yeah.
we really need to give you this actual
Yeah.
bar because you
I
have
feel
too
like-
many permissions.
Yeah, I work in operations. I feel like I got my captaincy through death. Like,
I will say I always thought that I would be the same way of like I would have to skip from like lieutenant commander up to just captain by like I couldn't do the paperwork of a first officer. Like they'd be like, "Oh no, you're good with big picture. Maybe we
Oh.
don't let you be granular with the staff."
I
Like,
would be so great
maybe.
as a first officer.
So yeah, I'm the other. I'm the first officer.
Yes,
I like
Joanne
to
and I, we're gonna tell people where they're going,
You will
and they're
do
gonna
this,
do it.
and you will do this on time, and you will do it right, or there will be consequences
Yes.
and repercussions.
I will hear you out, but then you're still gonna do what I told you to do.
See, that's the one thing I find out at work. This is within the last year of my own self discovery of like I am really good at delegating things to my supervisors and being like, I need you to just take. I there's too many other bigger things going on. I don't care how it gets done, just get it done. Like that's why high level captaincy right there. I can do that all day long. Don't let me, because the second I have to actually oversee a staff personally and like tell them what to do and they get frustrated watching them not do what I'm at. Thank you. That's when I'm an asshole and I am not the fun Matt that my staff likes. It's always just
All right, what's left? Broad topics of Star Trek Prodigy season 2.
We didn't really touch on the Doctor.
Well, there's a joke.
I'll
there.
say it. I found the Doctor underwhelming for all the hype we got about him being in the season. I am
glad they didn't overuse him, but I agree. I thought what we did get was surprisingly limited. And again, I'm glad they didn't go overboard because this isn't supposed to be about him. It's supposed to be about the kids. But yeah, I thought interesting stuff there, but meh.
There was also a weird. It would have been very easy in 1986 to say Deanna Troi was a psychiatrist and therefore was Dr. Troi. They intentionally chose to make her a therapist, a psychologist. We don't know that she actually had a PhD. They never referred to her that way. She studied on Beta Z at the University of Beta Z, went to the academy. Presumably, she's a master's level therapist, based on the fact that they don't call her Dr. Troi. But she's not a psychiatrist. She studied psychology and is a therapist. The weird trend, I got it when they did it with Culber because they needed to, in Discovery, they needed to do something with the character that made it a little, first of all, they needed to fill that role and they needed him to flex kind of into some different storylines. But the tendency to just make a ship's counselor also an MD and a psychiatrist, these are very different disciplines that serve very different functions when it comes to mental health. So the idea of the trend of making ship's counselors MDs is annoying.
Yeah.
And it does a disservice to psychologists and to master's level therapists, people who would be referred to as counselor versus being referred to as doctor. And so pushing Dr. Noam into a counselor role because we have the EMH on board and he now needs
it was unnecessary.
It was a way of shoehorning him in, and it relegated the CMO in a way that just didn't work for me.
Yeah. They could have very easily just said the Doctor is here as a personal favor to Janeway.
Yes.
Like he didn't have to take over.
Or he works at the academy now.
Yeah.
So is this something that maybe I haven't gotten to? Do we find out that he's a CMO?
They don't say that specifically, but they reference Noam as the ship's counselor, not just the chief medical officer like he was on the Dauntless.
More often than not, he's seen in the third chair versus
Right. I
spending
guess
time
I
in
had
sick
been
bay.
Yeah.
genuinely, I had been watching the entire thing as though he was just there for Janeway. Like, he was obviously a competent and decorated medical professional, but I didn't see him as the CMO, I guess. I always just assumed that it was just somebody in the back that we didn't really.
The EMH or no?
EMH, the doctor.
Yeah, it's and they never specifically say he took over as EMH, but there's a
Yeah.
very clear like, well, now you have two physicians, so which one is the physician?
Yeah.
And they then relegate Noam to sort of
Counselor.
the counselor
Yeah.
position and refer to him as Counselor Noam.
Yeah.
And then in medical situations, have both Noam and EMH in sickbay. So it's like, what? Like what?
Well, I mean, it's very season 3
Sort of.
with Beverly and Dr. Oak. Thank you.
Oak.
Now, admittedly, she was deferring to Beverly because she was
Sure.
basically an admiral at that point.
Yes.
But at the same time, it does feel kind of similar. But I also, I fully hear what you're saying, and I agree with
But they
it.
didn't make up a new title for Oak.
Right.
They didn't say like, okay, Oak, you're now also
That's
this
true,
other
yeah.
thing that is a whole job unto itself, and also a completely different discipline. And that's
I
what was
agree,
rubbing
yeah.
me the wrong way, is that in order to shoehorn it into the story and account for the fact that we have two physicians, you're now making one of the physicians take the job of someone who has studied something that requires a very different approach and a very different practice than, the psychology versus psychiatry. I realize in television we use them interchangeably, even though they're not interchangeable. Doing it in Star Trek was annoying to me.
Unless maybe it's one of those things where in the future they have that much of a background that they're capable of doing both. They have the degrees in both that they're able to pivot, the same way as somebody that's a lawyer and a doctor. They went and did the academy enough times or did, enough at the academy that they were able to have both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was just a weird. I mean, clearly it was done to shoehorn him in, and they didn't need to.
Sure,
To your point,
yeah.
they could have just said the whole time he works at Starfleet Academy and is here as, a representative for the cadets. He's here, or the hopefuls.
Or,
whatever
hey, you know what? Perfect headcanon right here. He was here because he went and picked them up, and Janeway put him in charge of these 4 people that were not ready to be on a starship yet, but she needed them to be there because they were the ones that opened the wormhole. Like, there it is. There, he is their keeper. He is doing a favor for Janeway as overseeing these kids. That's all he needed.
What a great opportunity, not to be like a super like rank nerd about this whole situation, but it made sense for a while for the EMH to not have rank, but like at this point, like during Star Trek Voyager, it made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now it doesn't. He's
what
clearly
are you?
serving a purpose, and he's wearing a uniform. So give him a rank so that he fits into this structure, because otherwise, who is he? Who's he in charge of? And it doesn't make sense. Yeah. So that's my this bothers me bit about this show that I absolutely love. Like, this is what I mean when I say there are nits to pick. I'm really picking at this point because
they're very tiny things. But yes. I mean, that is we are also streaming online on YouTube talking about a show. So I feel like we get to pick whatever nits we want.
Yeah.
It's almost like we nitpick. It's almost like we nitpick every Thursday.
Every Thursday at this time or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I do think it was just we didn't, because I think they're right. They established what you said, Matt. Like, oh yeah, I'm picking the kids up and y'all are accustomed to holograms, so I'm kind of your keeper. But then the way the story plays out, well, the kids aren't around a lot. So
what do we do with you now?
What do we do with you, right?
Hey, you have the medical knowledge of 5,000 people and everything, right? Can you go down and do something?
Slightly off topic, but I do want to know, and at some point we need to figure out how to find this out. Maybe I'll ask someone during when we're in Vegas. I need to know if Cetacean Ops was inspired by, like, who spent that much time at the Living Seas Pavilion in Epcot Center at Walt Disney World in Orlando, because like the everything from the hallway walking into the round room, it's the Living Seas at Epcot. Like, and I just need to know
So
who spent this much time here
actually,
as a kid like I did and decided to make this a thing.
no, it was. Did you see Aaron's? I don't know if maybe you didn't see Aaron's tweets of the original sketches for Cetacean
Hmm.
Ops back in like the early '80s for the Enterprise D.
Hmm.
That like was that big bubble with what like he was tweeting out. And he said that that was what they would had based everything on.
Well, now I need to know who in 1985-86 on Next Gen's production team spent that much time at Epcot like I did as a kid.
That they
Because
actually
Tweet it
damn room.
or tweet it Dave and see if they respond.
It's the same damn room.
I bet you one of them knows.
It does, and I also love it. Epcot was always, well, yeah.
It's an area of the park where everyone else has like already left the pavilion, and I'm still just standing there like watching the dolphins. and just I'm like all the way at the end of that in that big round room, and everyone else has already left for
So
something.
what y'all are ship nerds? Who gets a
Mhm.
cetacean ops and who doesn't, or what determines that, or do they all have
No,
a?
that's the size. If it's considered a long range explorer or a front of frontier, class ship where it's going to be going on like extended missions. So like a sovereign class, Enterprise D, like a Galaxy class. I don't think we had Cetacean Ops in like the Excelsior class, but I could see that being, Odyssey definitely would have one. It's any of those ones that would be like going out and exploring beyond the borders of the Federation because they're supposed to be navigators. So
Mhm.
it's designed that they are there to help get the ship back in areas that are unexplored, type of thing. I said that really fast.
Whale probes.
Yeah, I mean,
No, I
I'm
got
sure
it. I got it.
Although
But
technically,
cetaceans being natural navigators in three-dimensional environments.
Yeah.
The idea is, and now we can talk to them because
That was it was
Yeah.
so
and
fun.
the whole point is that they are better equipped to convert obviously sonar and things like that, these different impulses from the sensor arrays faster and more naturally than humans are because they're used to being underwater and getting these different
Kind of
I mean, you're getting
distortion thing.
like you're getting into very, very headcanon with it, but that was the general idea.
It was really cool seeing Jillian navigate for the ship.
And we know where her name comes from, right?
Yes.
But it does lead me to one of my last remaining nitpicks, which is it's an adorable scene, and I love that Rock Talk takes her job so seriously. But when Rock says she has to go feed the dolphins,
Yeah,
there's something very like, okay, so you have working, functioning crew members who are navigators on this ship that can't just swim up to a replicator and order whatever fish they want. Like that,
Yeah.
like there, it went from like you have functioning crew members who are navigators to you have pet dolphins, and I was like, what? Okay, you just told me they were one thing, and now you're trying to tell me they're another thing. And well, I was gonna say I'm fine with whichever one you pick. I'm not. Dolphins aren't pets, so like, stop. Like, just that I get it that we're doing this for the fact that she is very into her job at Cetacean Ops and she's very concerned about taking care of other people, but it just had a very this isn't a person or a being, this is a pet kind of vibe, and it flopped, all intended and not intended, for me when she said that line just kind of fell flat for me.
They took rock in a very interesting direction for me too for this season that, and again, I don't know, maybe it's my own lens, right? But she's super smart, right? And she came in clutch in all of the smart situations. But I noticed that they removed her from a lot of the physical situations where it required, some sort of physical dexterity or things, and I was just like, "Why you got the fat girl?" I mean, because she's strong.
Why is the big girl left out? Yeah.
Why is the big girl
Mhm.
left out? Like, she's capable of things. She can do the things. So I didn't know if that was just for speed of plot because maybe it would be a plot hole because she is strong, or I don't know. I was just kind of like, what is this about? So
But
my only
not to go full circle, but also a criticism of if Rock had a position on that bridge, good luck. Like who can get from point A to point B in that room with like
She had to shimmy to get into the turbo lift.
Yeah, like it just, and there's like Klingon type poles coming out of the ground going across the, like it just, you walk out of the turbo lift and there's a rail that you basically fall over to get to the captain's chair. You have to climb into the exo's position. Like if Rock was the con officer on that ship, you would have to redesign the entire bridge instead of just getting a different chair, which is what you would have to do on the original Voyager. Get a different chair, hold a girl up. But like this ship, she can't move within that room, and it just
my only thought for that, and this was my own thought, like they made Rock so powerful with that time loop from last season where she just learned everything basically. My only thought was that they didn't want to do that, and it was like, oh well, Rock's solving the problem again. Like I think maybe it was more of like, hey, we're gonna put this on other characters to figure out rather than, but I mean, this is,
no, I get it, but then it was like they paired her up then though at the end, like she was always with Zero, who at that point was physically impaired, was disabled. Right. So I'm like, I'm like, especially the Mirror Universe episode, like it was intentional that they removed both of them from this physically demanding episode. And I was just like, I'm a little offended, right? But yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. I haven't gotten there. I haven't seen it yet, so I have no idea.
It's actually one of my favorite
Joanne
episodes,
is right.
but I was just like, what is this about?
Matt, where are you in the season?
Not that far.
All right.
He's like two episodes in, right?
He didn't want to say.
No, I'm on episode 8 or 9, I think.
Okay.
So it's not like but I also have skimmed all of them because I wanted to be able to talk about things, and I have watched.
I mean, you can read the Netflix blurbs and know the whole damn season. They're so spoilers.
They really are very heavy on spoilers.
You just won't know the titles of any of it.
They got the details right, but they couldn't get the episode titles right.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right, y'all. I think we should bring it in for a landing. Season 2 is great.
Deanna, where are you?
We're gonna start deep diving 2 episodes a week starting next week. We hope everybody in the audience will join us. 6:30 p.m. next Thursday, starting with Into the Breach, parts 1 and 2. Until then, everyone. Nope. Trevor.
Normally I would do a scorecard, but I would like to harken back. I'm hearkening because I enjoy using the word harken when I get the opportunity. I'd like to harken back to season 1 Prodigy conversations back on Sohail's Twitter space 4 million years ago when we first started doing them. And
speaking of timey-wimey.
End with a lesson for the episode. So instead of a lesson for the episode, I want to end with a lesson for the season. And there was something that really stuck out to me by the time I was finished watching episode 20 of season 2, which is share your gift with the cosmos. Yes. So I don't care who you are or what your gift is, but share it. The cosmos is probably confined, relatively speaking, but share who you are and share your gift whenever and however possible.
Show whole. Live long and prosper.